Good morning, everyone. In the interest of keeping to time and starting on time, we're going to kick off at exactly 11:30. My name is Emma Colombera and I'm the Director of the Housing Supply Unit in the Department of Treasury and Finance here in WA, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to this major concurrent session on coordinating major infrastructure and housing projects for the public good. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we are meeting on, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I pay my deep respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I would also like to acknowledge people with lived experience and Aboriginal people in this session today and who are joining us in the conference, and express our gratitude that they are here to share their views and values with us. So today we will have 3 short presentations from each of our speakers, and then we will move to a panel discussion where we will be taking questions from the audience. So have a think about your questions as we go through so we can ask some nice spiky ones. Not really, but that'd be fun. And I'll provide further information about how to ask questions when we get to that point in proceedings. Now to today's session. The challenges of housing delivery are well known, and we've covered quite a few of them already in this morning's session, and they span a wide range of factors: labour shortages, material costs, and supply of available and ready developable land. The National Housing Supply and Affordability Council, which Ben Rimmer pointed to this morning as well, has forecast a new supply shortfall of 262,000 homes nationally relative to the 1.2 million Housing Accord target. And we know that constructing houses is a challenge in and of itself, but building houses isn't the only part of the challenge facing the nation. And there is far greater complexity to this. There is much more to developing growth areas and creating good communities where people can live well, have access to transport, health services, education and jobs. This is all part of the challenge of growth, and growth is not a bad problem to have. In this session, we're going to talk about chicken and eggs, and this is not a simple discussion. There are a multitude of elements that come together to deliver housing and major infrastructure in the public good. Housing requires transport networks, and I will talk a little bit about a local example of this, which is Metronet, which is work to achieve integrated land use and transport solutions for the future, and provides a layout for Perth's future growth to make the best use of resources and funding. The long-term vision of each Metronet station is guided by precinct planning and will be developed in partnership with the private and public sectors. Metronet is the single largest investment in public transport in Western Australia and included building 72 kilometres of new passenger rail and 23 new stations. The expansion of the rail network opened up housing opportunities near public transport. It's catalysed 8,000 hectares of land around new stations for housing, jobs and services, and the station precincts will be further developed during the next 30 years. Transit-oriented locations offer a great opportunity for the development of social and affordable homes so that people on lower incomes already can have ready access to transport, jobs and services. The WA Government has also created a new $400 million Housing and Enabling Infrastructure Fund in 24-25 to deliver water and power infrastructure in priority locations across Perth and regional WA. And this investment is targeted to bring forward land development and to unlock residential land in key areas. As all states and territory governments and the Commonwealth Government look at ways to increase housing supply, this is a great time to hear from experts and talk about the coordination of major infrastructure and housing delivery. This session will explore how a range of issues are playing out in some of Australia's largest infrastructure and housing projects, including equitable distribution of infrastructure delivery, management and maintenance costs and its impacts on housing affordability, the appropriate balance between infill and greenfield development, which, as some of you would know, is a major challenge in WA, particularly in the Perth metropolitan areas, I should say, as we have the dubious title of being the world's longest city. The need for transparency, public accountability and community consultation in a context of fast-tracked planning pathways. So now I'm pleased to introduce our presenters today. We have Michael Wheatley from New South Wales, Dr. Lissa van Camp from the Suburban Rail Loop Authority in Victoria, and Heather Browne from Economic Development in Queensland. More detail about their bios is on the conference portal. So now I'd like to invite Michael to present. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to come here and talk today. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're on. I also want to shout out to the Homes New South Wales AHO team who deliver housing and services all across the countries of New South Wales. Infrastructure has so many benefits and a huge impact on our lives. It unlocks benefits in the economy, in cities, in communities, but most importantly, it does actually give so much benefit to everyday people, ourselves. Whether it's access to public transport, health, education services, it is importantly as well about housing choices and housing for people. Also, done badly, infrastructure can create barriers and it could degrade communities, restrict supply or lack amenity. So I want to share with you a New South Wales perspective of how infrastructure delivery and housing are being coordinated, how they're coming together to really give better outcomes for people and for communities. I want to call out that housing is actually infrastructure itself. It is, I see it as infrastructure, we see it as infrastructure. It is a necessity that creates better outcomes for all people. So I'm going to start today just sharing with you our infrastructure program, our social housing infrastructure program in Homes New South Wales. We have $6.6 billion to deliver 8,400 homes across New South Wales. It also involves $1.3 billion on top of that to upgrade 30,000 homes. It is our social housing portfolio is the second largest asset class in New South Wales. It's larger than health. It's larger than education. It's an incredibly significant and crucial piece of infrastructure that genuinely changes people's lives and actually delivers some of the most important benefits to communities through access to social housing. What we need to do, we need to deliver this all over the state. It's not just metro, 30% in regional, but also in the cities. But the question becomes, where do you actually do it? We have demand everywhere. We know we have to deliver housing everywhere. So where do you choose to deliver the 8,400 homes? We have a framework, obviously, the demand, where the cohorts are needed most, but the second box, the orange box, is crucial. Where is it well located? Is it close to amenity? Is it close to services? Is it close to transport? This is a crucial decision for us and for government to get the most out of our housing, our rollout of our infrastructure, and it is also crucial for the success and creating better homes for people. So in New South Wales, it's probably a bit hard to see on the screen, but all the dots, and there's shading around the dots, is an integrated and coordinated approach to planning. It's not just about the shiny new infrastructure, it's equally about the infrastructure that we have in place. And with proper planning around the existing infrastructure, we can absolutely leverage the outcomes, far greater outcomes, in well-located places that have the amenity. Whether it's transport-oriented development or whether it's mid-rise developments, we are getting significant uplift around housing. And in our social housing program rollout, we can truly benefit from that and create homes that are great for people in areas of high amenity. So the relationship between planning, infrastructure provides Homes New South Wales with the platform to deliver at scale. And what I want to do today is I'll just quickly touch on three case studies: inner city, middle ring and outer ring, and how we're bringing all of that together. It's not such, I like the title, chicken and eggs. This is not about the chicken or the egg, it's chicken and eggs all together, how it all comes together. And so first case study is Waterloo renewal, Waterloo South. We are regenerating 750 homes into a precinct of over 3,000 homes, with about 50% being social and affordable. Hugely significant, and we're doing this in partnership with private and community housing providers, Stockland, Link Housing, Birribee and City West. And this really is underpinned by, really comes together with the new metro. Not only does the new metro provide that opportunity for high density and rezoning, the actual station box provides an opportunity to build new social housing on top of it. And that small image there shows you 70 new social homes that is part of the station. That is crucial because that unlocks the redevelopment. It means we have new homes for people to move into, and we can then roll out the 3,000 new homes across in a really efficient and fast manner. The second case study is Tilapia, and in the middle ring. It is an area that has a new light rail that's in place. It didn't have good access to amenity, but it has great schools, and now with the light rail really closely linked to Parramatta, Sydney's second CBD. And it is a huge uplift of about 3,000 homes with 1,000 social and affordable. So again, we can roll out housing at scale, at a renewal, in a well-located area. And it is significant infrastructure that has enabled this and makes this possible. But on a smaller scale, in the outer ring, this is one smaller scale example of a truly programmed approach to looking at government land, underutilised land. It's social infrastructure working with social infrastructure. We have a hospital. Adjoining the hospital is some significantly underutilised land. And through a government looking at all those underutilised lands, we're able to identify these and say this is a great opportunity for housing, a great opportunity for social housing, and also potentially key worker housing. And again, it just shows with a coordinated approach, it's not just the big shiny transport projects, it's all the infrastructure and underutilisation that we can use to bring together social housing, more housing with other amenity to make things work for one another. At the end of the day, it is about the people. We can change many lives in what we do. If we can really truly deliver more housing at scale through the infrastructure that we have, through the new infrastructure, treat housing as social infrastructure. It truly is infrastructure. We can, by well-located links to infrastructure, we have better homes, better outcomes for the community. We do it with stronger partnership, whether it's government, whether it's CHPs, or whether it's with development partners. At the end of the day, if we truly look at this in an integrated fashion, it's not an argument of chicken and egg, it is about both at the same time.
I think I should temper everyone's expectations. If that was chicken and egg, we are more of the egg phase at our project, but there is lots and lots happening. We've been around for a little while, but definitely in the earlier phases. Delighted to be here today to talk about Suburban Rail Loop. It is Australia's largest housing project. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which we're meeting today, and also the lands on which we are building the Suburban Rail Loop, the lands of the Wurundjeri and the Bunurong people. I'm sure you're familiar with this little town over in the east. Like cities all around Australia, Melbourne's growth is really at the heart of why we need to build more homes. By the 2050s even, in the 2050s, we are going to be the size that London is today. That's 9 million people. We're currently just over 6. So that means we need to have a modern public transport system, and we need to have more homes in the right places. And Suburban Rail Loop actually delivers both. That's why we say we are more than a rail line. That's why we will be chicken and egg, but at the moment we've just started construction a few years ago. Now, some of you might be from Melbourne, You might have visited Melbourne, you might have caught the trains to the MCG or to the Arts Precinct. I'm going to attempt to use the laser pointer here. What you can see is that we are a monocentric city with a radial network. And it's been working well since the 1950s. There you go, there's the link. But what most global cities have is an orbital rail link or rail loop, and that is what Suburban Rail Loop is building. In its entirety, Suburban Rail Loop will be a 90-kilometre loop linking every major rail line from Cheltenham in the southeast, round past the airport through to Werribee in the west. It will deliver faster, more reliable and convenient transport. It will change the way people move. It'll create new journeys and different choices. But SRL also helps Melbourne evolve from that monocentric city into a polycentric city with multiple urban centres, each with distinct commercial and residential activities. And by doing so, SRL, and I will use that acronym quite a bit, Suburban Rail Loop, will open up our middle suburbs and reshape the city's growth. Right now, we're full steam ahead delivering the first section. That's from Cheltenham in the southeast to Box Hill. It's 26 kilometres of twin tunnels, 6 brand new underground stations, and trains will be running by 2035. It is 10 years away, but it does feel quite close, and since I've been on the project since 2019, I'm starting to get a little weathered, but it is still 10 years away. It is going to make it easier for a patient to get to our hospitals. We've got hospitals in Box Hill, we've got a precinct in Monash, a medical precinct, a research precinct. Monash is also Australia's largest university, and it does not have a train station. Neither does Deakin at Burwood. So we'll be able to get students into their studies in a more efficient way. And more workers will be able to get to well-paid jobs in our middle and inner suburbs because they can get there without a car. And importantly for this group, it will deliver 70,000 homes in and around and above our new stations. What makes SRL different from most rail projects is that it's an integrated rail infrastructure and a land use project. It is not a mega project in greenfields. SRL neighbourhoods are in established communities. They're long-standing residential and commercial areas with existing attractions, key destinations, health, education, as I mentioned before, and really strong economies. SRL provides connectivity and better productivity in those high amenity suburbs, places where there are jobs, services, neighbourhoods where people want to live. And while we're building the infrastructure, we're also changing the planning settings to unlock the suburbs, to grow and recalibrate the city's growth strategically. Now, plenty of city-shaping projects are seeking to achieve the same. Emma, you just mentioned the MetroNet expansion, the largest public transport project the city's ever seen. But what is unique about SRL is that Suburban Rail Loop Authority, where I work, was specifically set up to simultaneously coordinate the transport and the urban planning to enable those new homes. It's a legislated requirement that we do so. As part of SRL East, tens and thousands of additional homes can be progressively added above and around our 6 new stations. The stations will attract more investment to the broader neighbourhoods, enable a more diverse mix of quality homes, townhouses, apartments, and more affordable homes. Homes that are suitable for people that are downsizing, the empty nesters, families, key workers, singles and students. Homes on the doorsteps of jobs, schools, local services and open spaces. SRL is unashamedly about change. We've been working with the market for several years. We've got a very large project that we need to procure, and we needed to work with the market so that we could optimise the way that we were going to procure and deliver. That engagement has underpinned our packaging strategy, and it has meant that we have achieved every single milestone to date. Construction of the rail line kicked off a little over 3 years ago, and major works are now powering ahead. And it's very easy for me to talk about that, but I've got a little video, and hopefully the sound isn't absurdly loud. But I want you to just get a sense of how far progressed we are on this already. So you would have picked up in the video that our tunnel boring machines, or our TBMs, are arriving late this year, and they will be in the ground starting to push dirt out the other end this time next year. It's a very exciting phase, massive milestone for us. And you would have also seen that we have the world's first all-female tunnel boring machine crew. So lots of training has gone into creating that, and there's a lot of excitement. SRL East stations will be amongst the busiest in Victoria. The plazas and the surrounding neighbourhoods will provide more open and green spaces, and we did show one of our small parks that we have built, but we're building hectares and hectares of open spaces. At the outset, we started to do things very, very differently. Because we are a statutory authority for precinct planning, we're delivering the rail and effectively planning our precincts around those stations. And it's not a small area either. Our stations are going to be a couple of 100 metres by the time you put the plaza in. We are a planning authority for a 1.6 kilometre radius around each station. That means that we can control and influence the number of homes, the types of places that these are. So our powers are actually very broad. I just got to hurry up, by the way, so I'm going to get a wriggle on here. In terms of our precinct planning process, it's hard to overstate the depth of engagement that we have undertaken. We have been talking to our communities since 2020 about what these precincts could look like. Now, no one effectively loves a lot of change. The changes that we are proposing, it is transformative, so the changes are equally bold in their vision. We have been talking to these communities to understand what they like about the precincts, what they would like to see differently about the precincts, but really, what do they value and what do we need to hang on to? That feedback has been threaded into structure planning and some planning scheme amendment changes that we are currently live with at the moment. I'm in a panel hearing, have been for the last 6 weeks, and will continue to be in that until the end of December. And that's when we will start to see what the final shape of these precincts will look like. We've engaged with councils, we've engaged with community members, we've had youth panels, we've had various advisory panels to make sure that our precincts are going to be places that people will continue to want to live and work in. So thousands upon thousands of conversations and lots of submissions to our structure plans and PSAs. Is everyone all right? We've got our directions. The model that we have used has meant that we can plan multiple places simultaneously. It's been thoughtful, coordinated and coherent, and it means that the change will be felt across our 26-kilometre alignment and in the surrounds. And whilst it's clearly about change, it's also about designing and applying best settings to achieve the best possible outcomes across those 6 precincts. We have considered different land uses, subdivision patterns, buildings and works that are guided by our planning scheme amendments. Okay, someone needs to get on state route. I'm not sure which one, but we've considered the sustainable urban outcomes. We've maximised public and active transport with linkages and walking and cycling paths. And we've streamlined assessments, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. I think the key message, given I'm out of time, is that what we build is just as important as how we're going to build it and what types of homes that we do build. It's been an extraordinary privilege to work on Suburban Rail Loop so far, shaping the way Melbourne is going to look, making sure that we're unlocking the housing choices and the housing diversity so that these precincts can be planned at scale and delivered at scale and pace. Thank you.
Hello everyone. As a Queensland Government representative here today. I'm sure you all want to hear how amazing the Olympics planning is going ahead. Look, I think that just to preface everyone's expectations about what this conversation will look like, EDQ, or Economic Development Queensland, is a statutory body that sits within the government framework, but we are not responsible for the delivery of the Olympics process. But I really wanted to talk through, we share a minister with our colleagues in state development that is leading the Olympics rollout, but want to be able to show you what the impacts of significant infrastructure like the Olympics potentially has on our housing sector, and what is EDQ leading into to be able to solve the crisis, I think, ahead of the 2032 Olympics. So earlier this year, we had undertaken a 100-day review with regards to the delivery of the Olympics precinct and venue strategy, and that landed on 37 venues across Queensland that it will be delivered. And I think what that says to me is, well, and I did actually check this, it's one of the most decentralised Olympics that will be planned across the world in the Summer Olympics stream of work. And what that says is that we are touching a number of communities in terms of both the positive and the implications that go with holding an event such as the Olympics. There is a planned view that there will need to be about 30,000 new workers that will need to deliver a $7 billion infrastructure pipeline that comes with the Olympics, and we are already in a housing stress situation across Queensland. Economic Development Queensland put through a pipeline of opportunities into Housing Australia's round one. So 14 sites up and down the Queensland coast and out to Roma. And when we go through each local government area, there is not a rental vacancy above 1%. So that just screams that we actually have a housing issue that needs to be done, let alone bringing in a requirement to deliver infrastructure such as the Olympics. I think the other thing that came through from ours is the review of the Olympics is that us waiting on the 2032 to deliver a housing legacy is just not going to cut it for Queenslanders. We need to be doing something now to be able to address the housing needs of Queensland. So, you know, the risk is with a big excitement that comes with the Olympics is that we all think that come 2032 everything will be fixed, but we need to be doing all things at once, if that makes sense. So what is Economic Development Queensland doing to be able to support housing delivery ahead of the 2032? I think we are an interesting organisation insofar as we are a land development organisation as well as a planning authority. So what we really try to do is bring our strengths to the table and be able to work through, similar to probably what you've just heard Chrissy talk through. But what does that mean to the question that kind of was posed today was really what is government's role and what is the private sector's role? EDQ has been through a bit of a refocus and a re-strategisation since the beginning of this year, and really thinking about what are our strengths and what do we bring to be able to deliver housing at pace and scale. And what those strengths are, what we see is being able to provide planning certainty and a framework that provides an outcome for the development sector to be able to lean to. It is about delivering enabling or de-risking infrastructure that supports a development-ready site ready for something to occur on. It means that we can bring forward our transactional experience. So those are complex transactions that talk to whether that's a Housing Australia outcome, whether it's working with our Department of Housing colleagues in terms of delivery of social and affordable housing on sites, or it is just around a very big precinct and how we actually delay settlements to bring forward housing. It means also that we take on our very strong stakeholder skill set that be able to talk to community as well as talk to our local councils about what's happening in their areas. And one of the things that we've really focused on in the last period of time, particularly as state government, is how do we work in partnership with our local council counterparts and be able to make sure that we're working in lockstep with them. So that means that we've really what we've been able to focus on is deliver a whole suite of development-ready sites into the market. And that is through to delivering with in partnership with our community housing sector as well as into private sector development. And those sites are a mix of surplus and underutilised government land. So one of the key things that's similar to what Michael sort of talked through is how do we look through the government land portfolio and really think about how we actually can bring forward housing. One of the sites that's just up there is at Bundamba is in Ipswich, which is in on the fringe of Brisbane, about 40 kilometres from the CBD. It is a TAFE site, so it is, tertiary college, insofar as there was 6.1 hectares of vacant land that was associated with the TAFE that was being not utilised. We've done a subdivision works. We've been able to transact with our local, with our landowner agency, bring forward some enabling infrastructure, work through the planning process and take that out to market. And those type of opportunities are being really well taken up by the market. And what we want us to ensure across as we head into 2032 is we're delivering both a mix of infill opportunities such as those, as well as some of those more major precincts that Economic Development Queensland has been renowned for delivering. We look after urban regeneration precinct in at North Shore Hamilton, which is on the river about 6 kilometres from the city. It's a 35 hectare opportunity for us to be able to deliver about 30 years of land supply. So we are focused on delivering both the infill opportunity but the major also precincts as well. That is a really good wind-up, isn't it, when you get that? Yes. But one of the other things that EDQ looks after is priority development areas, which is through our planning and regulatory framework. And that is a real focus of us at the current point in time. Up in 2024, EDQ's land pipeline, or really the greenfield land supply pipeline, had been delivered. 50% of that into the market had come through the priority development process. So we are really focused on both the infill side of things as well as the greenfield opportunities, and acknowledging that we've just recently declared a whole suite of new priority development areas, which is about 60,000 dwellings across those 4 precincts. The other piece that we've talked about is an enabling infrastructure, and what planning frameworks are no help to anyone without the supporting infrastructure that be able to turn those on. And we're able to, through the support of the federal government, be able to take forward some priority workstream funding, which is delivering up to about 2,500 dwellings across our pipeline. What that has been able to do is across 6 sites be able to do the minimal infrastructure funding to be able to unlock key infill opportunities in southeast Queensland, as well as up into regional. We've got one site up in Townsville as well too, which is an infill opportunity as well. The Catalyst infrastructure funding is ensuring that, and when we bring through priority development areas, that developers are able to access funding to be able to bring forward that infrastructure. Sequencing of key trunk infrastructure is absolutely critical to be able to turning on greenfield opportunities, and without funding being available to do that, there is basically everyone standing at 20 paces and looking at each other and going, well, how do we turn this on? So very fortunate, particularly on our Caboolture West opportunity, to be able to access through the government some funding to be able to turn on our Catalyst infrastructure funding. The Queensland Government, as they came into to government late last year, also announced a $2 billion residential activation fund, with it to be split between 50% into regional areas as well as to southeast Queensland. This is also administered through state development and has been able to be accessed both the local governments as well as developers, so not just being a government-to-government funding source. 2 rounds ended up becoming 1 round because there was that many of pent-up supply basically coming through the first round of activation, and it is seeing funding being rolled out immediately through from southeast Queensland right up into to northern Queensland. And our housing pipeline we do see as being infrastructure, similar to what Michael said, is we see this as an opportunity to be able to bring forward the sites that are available for major investment to be delivered on those. So again, really, and it's a bit hard, this slide's a bit hard to see, the lighting is not really great. But I think what we wanted to really focus on through this process is what is government's role? And the government's role is playing to our strengths and is being able to be very clear about what our enablers are to be able to bring forward housing around that infrastructure pipeline. It is talking through our priority development areas, and we're about to embark on a new journey through a provisional PDA process, which is really a site-specific priority development area. It talks about our catalyst infrastructure funding and being timed to be able to deliver essential funding and be able to turn on those greenfield opportunities in a timely manner. It is also about our transaction capability and being able to work in conjunction with our partners in the private sector to be able to turn forward housing. And one of the things that EDQ has had a really strong focus on since in its refocused mindset is really having very direct conversations with the market about how we can do that. And we have an exclusive dealings policy that allows us to have a very good, strong and clear connection with the market bringing forward those. Just a quick round out of the achievements that we've talked through. So we're really focused on being able to deliver pace and scale ahead of the 2032 Olympics. It's being able to deliver development-ready sites that the private industry, including our community housing sector partners, can be able to walk on and be able to deliver from the day. It talks around direct investment in housing. So we're supporting our Department of Housing colleagues being able to deploy up to $5 billion across there to be able to bring forward social and affordable housing, 53,500 social housing outcomes, as well as being able to turn on major infrastructure within our greenfield PDAs. So, thank you.
Okay, there's a lot to digest in those presentations and a lot of really common activity. It's great to see. I think we're all facing very similar challenges in integrating and coordinating infrastructure and housing to get those better communities and places that we're all seeking to develop. So it is time for questions, and there's a couple of rules about questions. You need to put your hand up and let somebody know if you're going to ask a question so they can bring a microphone to you. And keep your questions somewhat short if you can. They're the rules. I didn't make them up, so we just have to stick to them. Who wants to kick us off with the first question?
Chris Pettit, City Futures Research Centre. Thank you very much for the presentations. It's amazing to see all the transformational infrastructure going into all the cities. I'm just wondering if there's any consideration at some level with all this infrastructure going in, there's a lot of value being created around those train stations and those precincts. Are there any policies or approaches or consideration around how some of that value might be captured and redistributed from the increase in land value and property value around those transformational pieces of infrastructure?
I'm happy to take that one to start. Certainly with Suburban Rail Loop, we've been very clear through a business and investment case that was released in 2021 that we are looking for that value capture to help fund part of the project. So there will be a scheme similar to what the developer contribution plan currently is applied within our precincts. I mentioned that we're the planning authority for the 1.6 kilometre radius around. We've just gone and done some structural planning for an 800 metre radius around those stations. So we're kind of tackling it in two phases. We know that the value will be for the full 1.6, but in the first instance, we want to try and centralise that development and the contributions that we make in the precinct to really catalyse around the stations. So that's where our focus is right now, and that is similar to other schemes that are happening in Victoria. We've got an activity centres program that is equally looking to capture value around that 800 metres around infrastructure nodes.
Can I just offer a different view? I think that Economic Development Queensland, through our PDA process, has looked to value capture in some of those key sort of areas, particularly the inner precincts. The challenge, I think, with feasibilities, etc., at the moment is that can sometimes stymie development. So then we end up with no supply happening because we're actually trying to put too much through that market process. So I think value capture can absolutely be part of the tools that we can bring forward, but we've got to be very careful about where that is and whether that's actually an inhibitor to bringing forward supply. So so I think it's just being very careful about where that can potentially be applied and at what time in the property cycle we should be looking to do that.
I'd like to echo that. Value capture has been a complex thing for a long time, and many governments and jurisdictions, and especially New South Wales, worked out how to do it effectively. At the moment, I think our priority is housing supply. As Heather mentioned, that especially in New South Wales, feasibilities are really challenged at the moment. And so I think it's a case of priorities to get things happen, deliver housing, support housing. And so getting bogged down in tackling that is an issue. But on a more individual scale, from Homes New South Wales' point of view, the Tilapia example I put up, that had a very challenged feasibility, and we've actually decided to develop that ourselves in stages. And we are therefore able to bring on the first stages, put the necessary amenity and infrastructure in place around the light rail, deliver quality social and affordable housing, demonstrate the value of the area, and Homes New South Wales will get the value capture and the value uplift. And that's an approach, especially in market failure, around a lot of our developments, a lot of our precincts. We have that ability to invest, create the amenity, bring on new housing without any delay, but then also reap the benefit of that from the value capture longer term.
I think you're spot on. The market is somewhat challenged at the moment. There are other mechanisms to get the value in addition. So we have released a voluntary uplift framework associated with our structure plans, and this is another way that we can try and get a little bit more into our precincts using developers to help us get there. And part of it is we have I mentioned we're going for transformational change, and around in our precincts it's usually 2 and 3 stories, maybe a single story home. Now we want 70 to 30 as an infill greenfields. We're not going to get to where we need to be if we don't make change happen. So where it has been a 3 and a 4 story, we're enabling 6 to 10 to 20 to 40 stories, depending on where you are. So it is going to be a city of centres. If you want to go a little bit more than the envelope that we have proposed, the developer needs to put back in, whether that be through a provision in social and affordable housing, whether it be through transport or walking links or public open spaces. There's a way to get developers to contribute to these great precincts in the future. So there's multiple ways to do it. Absolutely, we are in a challenging environment at the moment. We have been engaging with developers for a long time around this, but we're pretty confident with the settings that we've put forward that it's not about tomorrow. We do want change at pace, but we haven't got our planning scheme amendments through yet, so we've still got a little way to go, but we're clearing the way so that lots of different mechanisms can come together and achieve the outcome.
I think we had a question over here, and then we'll go to you.
Hi, David Eslow from Disability Housing Solutions. We're based in Queensland. We're specialist disability accommodation providers, and we work nationally. I suppose mostly for Michael and Lissa, and Heather will explain why in a second. The social housing in Victoria and New South Wales, all these redevelopments, is there a percentage of SDA housing you're incorporating in the social housing growth? Not just at the sort of silver and gold level, but in that improved ability, high physical support level. Is that included in your calculations? And Heather, the reason why I didn't ask for Queensland is frustratingly, Queensland stands alone in the country that the definition of social housing in Queensland doesn't include SDA. This is something that Julian knows a bit about, the new CEO, and it'd be great to see some advocacy from EDQ back to housing to amend the definition of social housing that SDA is included, so you can unlock funding for SDA in Queensland. It's really, really needed. But is SDA included in these social housing figures?
For New South Wales, no, it's not. We do have individual projects that are large mixed tenure projects that are including SDA into it, and especially with some of our partners, community housing partners. But the SDA doesn't fall under the Housing Act in New South Wales, and social housing is under the Housing Act. So no, it doesn't include SDA, but that doesn't preclude us from working with partners on delivering it in various mixed tenure projects, which we do.
Similar answer. We don't have a target in our homes projections. What we have done is include a very specific target in our voluntary uplift framework, but it is voluntary. And there is an incentivisation to attract people more to the provision of social and affordable homes through that voluntary uplift, as opposed to some of the other public benefits that are provided in that framework. So we've gone about it with a more of a carrot rather than a stick.
And I think I'd just add to that, EDQ certainly is positioned to be much more market-facing going forward, and be really keen to see some direct engagement from SDA providers on specific sites that they'd like to take forward, and we have that ability under the exclusive dealings to be able to bring forward that social infrastructure, absolutely.
Okay, I think we had a question at the back there, and then one at the front here as well.
Look, just Gary Mack, Town of Cambridge. With respect to the value uplift in and around the stations, is it contemplated that the statutory authority will purchase land for the provision of the necessary public open spaces if the density goes up to 10, 20 stories, that is required and that is often non-existent or insufficiently existent in these areas? Or otherwise, how do you get the developers to cede land consistently for these open spaces? So what's the thinking around that, please?
Great question. So first of all, we've gone through a process of these are the precincts, this is the population, this is the housing, jobs numbers, etc. We've then gone from an evidence base and said if the population is this, whether it be residential or jobs, this is the public open space that's required, and we're looking at a 400 metre catchment to create that. Those are projects in their own right, and as the authority, the statutory authority, we are looking to deliver those projects. Now, we may need partners for the necessary infrastructure, community infrastructure that is required to make these precincts great, but we are here, we're not sort of, we're here for the long term, like we're a statutory authority. The voluntary uplift framework is more it's a nice to have. We don't need that to come to fruition to create the precinct. We have to be able to create that base in our own right, and then the voluntary uplift framework is kind of the cream on top. So if developers want a little bit more height in their buildings, we need something in return. But we will already have the projects underway or in plan for the next 15 years to create and provide open spaces, community hubs, and so on and so on.
Okay, can we have a mic to the front here, please?
Hi, Samantha Race from Launch Housing. Thank you all so much for your presentations. Speaking from a Victorian context, one of the key barriers we face when we're trying to acquire state-owned sites is the VGV, so the Valuer General of Victoria's office, and the requirements to transact on those sites at market value. How can we, as a community housing sector, I guess, advocate to state government to help the VGV's office understand the nuance of social housing projects? Respectfully, in my opinion, that's been a challenge in the past in the VGV's office, understanding the nuance of social value projects. So how can we help government understand that kind of nuance and how we can transact on sites below market value, ideally for free, but at a bare minimum below market value to help house the 55,000 households waiting for housing in Victoria?
That is a topic that we've actually really just been diving into, and it's a big issue for us as well. Even within government, the the Treasury and accounting requirements require land to be transacted at market value. And the conversation's really hotted up around exactly that. How do you value that land at market value? And when you start to lay in the planning requirements, the planning, especially when you get into inclusionary zoning and you have the affordable housing components that are included in it, then you need to start being able to value it. And I've been to a few sessions with industry recently, and they really are starting to dive into that. And there's some really good work being done around how to value affordable housing and social housing. It's also quite, I think one of the things that has helped to tackle this head on has been the HAF and the partners in the room and doing that and their own land. And so it is basically, I think you almost answered the question yourself. We are and need to value it, understand the revenue streams that they're getting, that whether it's 25 years or whether it's perpetuity, and then having the discussions with the valuer generals in each state. And that's exactly what we've done, helping them understand how to value those the land with social and with affordable housing in it, because it's now becoming a commonplace across all sort of housing typologies.
So as a project that has had to go through the VGV to acquire land so that we can build our stations, I understand that it can be challenging, and it can also be sometimes not at the pace that we want to get the outcomes. I don't have a solution for you, but we have got some experience. Our project, as I mentioned, it's not in greenfields. We're in existing communities. So we've, over the last few years, had to acquire several sites. So I think it's 300 properties, residential and commercial. We will be going to develop around those stations because we are the landowner, and there's ways to partner. And so, did you say you're from Chia?
Launch Housing.
Okay. I think there's good partnerships to come at the right time in our development cycle. So please keep in touch, because there'll be opportunities for social and affordable homes.
Clearly it's an issue across the board, and certainly EDQ has been advocating very strongly into government that the current housing crisis is an all-of-government solution. It cannot be just on housing departments, etc., to be able to solve that. And I think, it is certainly a challenge through the accounting standards and, all of those really important things. But what we need to focus on is how do we actually be able to bring forward housing, and all government landowner agencies own a role in that part. So that's how we're sort of messaging to government, and we expect that we've got some movement happening across the Queensland government in that space.
Hi there, my name's Denise Boyd. I'm from Mortgage Trust Victoria. I'm a little concerned though, because those big housing projects basically mean strata title and owners corp. And we know that there is a big problem, affordability problem there, particularly at the development stage, where significant long-term contracts are baked in right at the building stage, which then puts the burden on future owners. So there's an example in Sydney where an apartment near Central Station is going to cost, on top of the mortgage and the utilities, it's like $15,000 a year in owner's corp fees or strata fees. That's a lot of money. That's not affordable. So we do see people at our service in Victoria who are really struggling to pay baked-in fees. I'm curious to know how, as agency representatives, your various governments are attentive to that from a housing perspective, to avoid building in right from the very start unaffordability for lot owners. Thank you.
I'm happy to lead off that one. I think one of the key things that we've just talked through is ensuring that there is choice and supply and diversity across the spectrum of housing. I will talk to EDQ-led a project as an infill priority development area at Castledine Village, and actually piloted a 188 terrace homes that were on zero lot boundaries to be able to get away from community management schemes as well as strata titling. And interestingly, that has been a project that the market has taken up very significantly across our portfolio going forward. So I think that what we need to do is completely appreciate the view around strata fees, but it's providing choice and ensuring that across our pipelines we can have a mix of typologies so that people can choose to buy into the product that suits their needs at a particular time in their lives.
I was going to say, it's very similar. It is about diversity of choice for all the various cohorts, and market housing does have, is strata and does have strata fees. But how do we maximise the outcomes for social housing, for affordable housing? In a lot of our mixed tenure projects that we develop with partners, we're very focused on making sure the assets are planned and the renewals planned of those mixed tenure in a way that supports the CHP's operating costs. Homes New South Wales, we hold it in one line. CHPs and our partners hold the assets in one line. So it then becomes only the market housing that has that impact, and again it comes back to a diversity of choice.
The only thing I'd add from a Victorian context there is our Minister for the Suburban Rail Loop is also the Minister for Housing and Development Victoria. So I think having it all under the one umbrella means that she is very attuned to the issues that you've raised. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Leanne Hoddle. I'm a consultant in urban strategy based in Melbourne. Thanks for all your presentations, and being a former public servant, I have a lot of empathy for the very challenging world you live in. I did just want to revisit this value capture question, because I just want to perhaps put you on the spot a little bit more on this one, because I think that while I understand the realities of the development market at the moment, around the Suburban Rail Loop, for example, the upzoning is happening now, and so the land values are going to go up now. And we've seen, for example, in Fisherman's Bend, how hard it is, renewal precinct in Victoria, how hard it is to get a DCP up later. It's now been 7 years since the rezoning, there's still no DCP. So why take that two-stage process? Why not try and capture more now?
Thanks, Leanne, and hello. We've seen some of your work on the project. The two-stage project, the two stages. I just would like you to clarify what you mean more. I can still hear you. I can repeat if that's helpful.
Maybe to elaborate a little bit more, like you just talked about open space, and that the opt-in voluntary delivery of open space is the nice to have on the top. So you've got the funding plan to deliver the open space now. Whereas social housing, which we all agree is essential infrastructure, is now still only being treated as a voluntary. There's only a voluntary mechanism to deliver it. So why wait to put some sort of security about the delivery of social housing in now, when value capture is an obvious one when you're rezoning some of this housing from single story to 20, as you said?
Yeah. So one of the things that I didn't mention is that Victoria is going through a whole suite of planning reform at the same time as what Suburban Rail Loop is proposing to make these changes in the precincts. And we are responsible for the precincts in our 6 station areas, but the planning reform is happening across the state. And so there is, to riff off the title of this, a little bit of chicken and egg associated with the pace at which some elements are being considered. And so we are absolutely just on the cusp of seeing more direction and policy around this at a statewide level that then would be incorporated into Suburban Rail Loop.
The whole value capture, like it is hard. If it was a clear, easy answer, I'm sure it would have been done. There is obviously indirect value capture through land tax and those sorts of things where the value, but that is long term. We have seen some great renewals in Sydney and in Newcastle through infrastructure that has transformed precincts. And you sit there and you go, oh gosh, look at all that value that's going to people, but that the benefits to the communities are huge. It is hard to layer in a direct value capture without impacting the whole feasibilities and incomes. And yes, I understand it's a problem at the moment, may not be always, but it is priorities and it is a case of getting things happening. And maybe there's many benefits in other ways, but and it's up to individual asset owners like ourselves, like Homes New South Wales. We have land in areas and we strategically target the ones that are going to get the uplift, so government, and so we can get more social housing and get more subsidies, so land subsidising our social housing so we can deliver more. So government can do it, but not in explicit ways. It's very hard.
Great. We've got a question here and then we'll come to you.
Oh, hi, Letty from Near My National. Thank you so much for all your insightful presentation, and it is great to have a snapshot of what is happening at the moment. However, I'm wondering, for those that cannot attend, is there a possibility from the government to provide greater transparency to help keep both the public and stakeholders informed on the progress of those initiatives? And more specifically to Michael, what is your view on an invitation for a public live dashboard or a similar platform?
We're happy to publish. We publicly table what we're delivering and all the things that we're doing and our numbers each year. The other aspect to it in terms of the actual projects, we have a really incredibly strong foundation for all our projects, starting with engaging with the community. We have, over the years, done it badly, and we've learnt from that, and we've taken great pains and have a really strong and super team and culture within Homes New South Wales to actually sit down with communities even before we start the planning process. We learnt that through Waterloo. We're doing that now in Bellambi, in Wollongong, and that is about, first and foremost, engaging with the people who are in the houses there and in the communities. It's not. We still have to do the statutory consultation, but it is genuine engagement of the communities who are on the ground. What do they want, even before we start addressing the planning? So the engagement with communities is huge. It is a foundational principle for us, and we need to do it better and better and do it more and more. And we're happy. We do share sort of what we're building, where, and the numbers and what we're delivering. So.
Okay, I think we've got another question here and then we'll go to you.
Thank you. Hi, Miriam Wright from Housing Choices Australia, former public servant in public transport in Victoria, part of a big build, LXRP, everything, V-Line. So I understand where you're coming from, Lissa, especially with what's happening in Victoria. So congratulations where you're at, because I know it's been a big hurdle and I know what you're going through. Now I'm on the other side. I think the problem we have, yes, as being on the other side is the lack of supply for social housing and affordable homes. And I think it's what I will rejoin Leanne It's where we need the numbers to understand how we can support the Victorian, obviously, or partner from a national organization. So from a government perspective, I understand the difficulties, and the Victorian government has done very well. I'm not saying anything about it. But when are you looking at getting some partnership with the CHP? And why not to impose on the developers? And I know it's doable to do that, not now because you're in a herd. People do understand the community engagement has been very difficult. You've been challenged in every step of the way, especially with all the big builds we're doing in Victoria, we've been doing. So it's been, SRL is screaming like, oh my God. Do I summarize well? Yes, yes. So I understand all of that. So my question is, when are you looking to start this engagement? And congratulations to get to these milestones, because I know the work has been behind and all the tenders and bids and everything, so congrats.
Thank you. There was lots in that. There is a timing element to all of this. I mentioned that we're in our structure planning and planning scheme amendment standing advisory committee panel hearing at the moment. And that's where we have proposed a series of changes that should accelerate the ability to build. And I think that's probably a really critical first step. And some of those ways that we're choosing to try and accelerate is maybe things that you've already seen in Queensland, but deemed to comply kind of standards. So if you meet if your planning proposal meets a series of objectives, it's deemed to comply, and we are going to take a pathway where there is no third-party review right. So it doesn't go to another panel with a neighbour that challenges it. So trying to give that certainty of deliverability at the very outset. Now, I think that's a really critical first step, because if you face challenge after challenge after challenge on some development opportunities, you're taking away from the momentum, and you're taking away that certainty of outcome. So that's where our focus is right now. We're really trying to change those planning settings, telling people what will be in that particular neighbourhood, or what we think should be in that particular neighbourhood after years of engagement, and what we would like to see from an urban design perspective, from a sustainability perspective, in those areas. Once we get that done, we will start to build our stations. So the tunnel boring machines arrive later this year and in the ground next year, but we're not giving our first service until 2035. So we've got 10 years to commence on these partnerships. One of the things that we have to do is build the stations. Now that means we've got a perimeter that will be excluded from multiple contractors because of union issues, etc. So once those contracts start to change, then we start with other elements of achieving the vision. So it is a bit of a while away, particularly in those station development areas. Where we own land outside of that, I think we can commence the partnerships sooner. And certainly in areas like Monash, we have huge opportunity, because there's large landholders with big footprints that we can work with to get the outcomes that we need. So we're working with developers, we are working with contractors to try and get those outcomes in a staged way.
Can I just add, sorry, I'll just add one facet that I think EDQ sort of focused on is where we have identified land opportunities suitable for the delivery of social and affordable housing. With direct investment, it has meant that we've been able to deliver homes quicker. And I think that is a model that we are focused on. We can't do that everywhere, obviously, because of funding, etc. But I think we've been able to point to particularly 3 or 4 current opportunities that have occurred in the last 12 months, where we've been able to put funding on the table, talk directly to the CHP sector through a market process, to be able to fund, to be able to bring forward housing. And 2 of those projects are already into construction already at the moment. So that is a model that we would like to see be able to be able to roll out more, because us potentially through, whether that's through value capture or all of those things, is kicking It's just kicking that down the road, and the best thing that we can do right now is be able to ensure that that's being delivered at pace.
I think it's worth staying on this question just a little bit longer, because the role of the CHP sector in delivering social and affordable housing is obviously really critical, and the opportunity is significant and unprecedented with HAF funding. So those partnerships and the ability to leverage that available funding to get that social and affordable housing constructed and delivered, the time is now. We've got this, we'll see what HAF round 3 brings forward, anyone's guess. But I just wonder if the panel, and maybe Michael, we could start with you, whether, those, if you could talk a little bit about those partnerships with CHPs and how you've seen the benefits of those partnerships with any of your projects.
Absolutely. So of our 8,400 pipeline, we're looking to develop or deliver about 40 to 50% of that through partnerships and mainly with CHP. And we're very fortunate that the HAF has come into that, and that has enabled us to get additionality into our projects, and especially where mixed tenure, we've been able to up the proportion of social and affordable housing in that. So it is one of our core strategies is to develop our pipeline with CHPs, taking in pre-HAF, and for a long time ago, New South Wales sort of gave the management of about 30,000 social housing dwellings to CHPs, and that's been foundational. And so CHPs are a huge part of our system in New South Wales. They're a core part of our system, and so they have to be our partners. And we are working to deliver as many projects as we can with those partners. And we used to do it not so well. We used to, push all the risk across the table, and or go and do it. It's all your problem. And we've learned that that's not the ideal way to do it, isn't that right, Mark? And Mark's smiling at me. We've with Chia's guidance and individual discussions with our partners have learnt to sort of share that and co-develop things and have appropriate risk sitting in appropriate sides at the right time to get the best outcomes.
Great. So we have a question over here, and then we'll go to the front row.
Andrew Elvin, CEO, Coast Bay Housing Group. I appreciate that, and it's on the same topic, but if I was an alien from outer space coming here, all your projects sound absolutely fantastic, but they just express to me complete frustration because there's a housing crisis now. And, we see people coming into our offices every day who are desperate for housing. And I appreciate you're trying to go as quickly as you can, but we can't wait to 2035, to get houses. We need something a lot quicker than that. And I know, Heather, you've gone out to the market, but that's after we've gone out, that Housing Australia has gone to the market. So there's 2 rounds of market. So we collectively have to do better to get homes on the ground now. There's political pressure for it. So my question is, how can this go faster, and what are you going to do to make it a reality? Because we need things now.
For us, historically, we would do 600-700 homes a year, but because of that pressure and through partnerships with CHPs and developers, we've doubled that, and doubling that this year. And so we're now set ourselves up to be able to deliver 1,400 to 1,500 a year on year. And that's what our program is based on. It is a drop in the ocean still, but it has been, and we've been very focused on how to just get it going. Not let perfect get in the way of progress, just roll them out, double it, and cut through, in some cases, not wait for rezonings but just to get projects going on what's there, because they're still getting significant uplift. We've taken on some of the larger ones, we've stepped in and actually are funding and just getting the social housing and affordable housing going first. Market can come later, but the vast majority of our projects are 100% social and or social and affordable, and so we are absolutely focused on doubling and getting that out as quickly as possible. Is it enough? No, we need to do more, but we're going hard as we can.
I take your point, 2035 is 10 years away. If you think about the project like a bullseye, the station is in the middle, and that's the land that the government owns to build the stations, and that will enable adjacent station development because you need a bit more of a lay-down area to construct, and over-station development. Now, we will be in care and control of that land until there's a direction from government to do something differently. But as you go out of the target, there are different opportunities, and we are making those changes for the entirety of that target. So we are in the process of enabling faster consideration of planning applications. We have proposed some changes so that you won't end up in VCAT for another year and a half while that is debated. So, we're giving very clear direction and taking away some of those pre-challenges to development so that things can happen as quickly as possible in the other parts of that target that are within our planning area. And this is being replicated across other parts of government. We are one part of the big build, one authority, but you've also got Development Vic, you've got Homes Vic, and various other levers that are equally trying to resolve and meet the challenge that's in front of us.
And just to round out the conversation, I think that it's a good point that we just need to be doing more as quickly as we possibly can. I think, certainly our colleagues in our planning and infrastructure team are certainly very focused on approval timeframes, etc., to ensure that we can bring forward housing as quickly as we can. So I think there's that. I think that what we've just talked around is the de-risking through enabling infrastructure, etc., and being able to turn on infill housing, because that's generally the thing that will come forward quicker. The other thing that I think we have been focused on, and it is a challenge, I think, as an industry, that we can be focused on saying that the site should be able to cope with a 20-storey building on it. And currently at the moment, so probably worse than that, say a 40-storey building, and currently a viable outcome on that is a 25-storey because of the cost of construction. And we have to be able to let that happen, because ultimately what we've done is create a framework where everything's just standing by. And that will be challenged. We certainly have got a couple of transactions from EDQ going through at that lower density than what was previously anticipated, and that's hard for the community to understand because they see the housing crisis and they want to see, but there is a typology that is being delivered in a feasible and viable manner at the moment, which generally is that lower density, townhouse and terrace product. And we are letting a couple of those sites go because we need to ensure that we're delivering housing now. We can't just wait for the big developments. So I think there will need to be an understanding that we may make different decisions in this current environment to ensure that we can deliver housing now.
Okay, we have a couple more questions here in the middle, but we'll go to the front row first.
Thank you. I'm Kirsten from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Thanks for a great presentation so far. I'm going to give a quick plug for our building activity release coming out tomorrow. You'll get the latest dwelling completion numbers and you can all see how you're tracking. We all know there's
That's actually very exciting.
It is. Thank you. It's very exciting. We all know there's a housing crisis, and we're also trying to deliver the infrastructure projects that we need to support all of those housing. And obviously by state, we've got lots of competition for projects. We haven't even touched on the education and health projects that are going along to support those, as well as you've got private sector investment in warehouses and automated distribution centres and those kinds of things. I'm really interested to understand what are your plans and strategies to ensure you've got the workforce to deliver all these projects and that they're available in the right place at the right time.
If I can take that from my perspective first, and then
We're all going to steal each other's work.
yeah, they're off to the Olympics. So the project that I'm on is Suburban Rail Loop, and Victoria has been in a big build for several years. So we had the Metro Tunnel project, we've had level crossings, we've got North East Link, Westgate Tunnel. All of those projects are actually, Metro should open this year, Westgate should open this year. North East Link is in the middle. LX, some of those projects are coming to an end. You know, I think we've delivered over 100 level crossings so far. And so with our project ramping up and those projects coming down, there's actually a really good transfer and pipeline of work. So with our project, with heavy tunnels and civils, plus stations, plus a line-wide contract, which is, you know, your rail platforms and so forth, I think we've got a really steady, at least from a civil infrastructure perspective, a really steady workforce. Moving into the precinct developments, we've been speaking with developers for several years now, and making sure that we understand what their constraints are, what they want to see. And it's similar to what I was talking about before, you know, eliminate some of those planning delays, because some of them are shovel-ready, waiting, and they just want to know what the setting is going to be, so what sort of heights can they get to. So I think we're going to see some activity around our precincts really, really quickly, but I'm confident that we have a steady civil infrastructure workforce to deliver on SRL East.
Interestingly, we had the CEO of the Olympics come in and speak at our board strategy day last week, and Simon was very clear. Ultimately, he will probably trump the Olympics. Will pull a lot of the resources across the Queensland construction sector, and the challenge for us is really to ensure that we get as many housing projects and developable land out into the market right now to ensure that we get ahead of that curve. And we will, you know, I think the challenge will be, you know, as the Olympics ramps up, as we continue to deliver housing supply in the background. You know, certainly there has been a more concerted effort of the Queensland Government to look through its capital pipeline to ensure that there is not trying to do all things at once, to ensure that we can actually meet resource requirements. But it is certainly a challenge, you know, the nation faces at the moment, particularly with, you know, an environment that is talking around immigration. I'm going to call it right now. Like, you know, there's a conversation that needs to happen at federal level around immigration and ensuring that we have the skilled workforce capable of delivering the housing that we need to deliver right now.
It's a massive issue. The builders that we talk to, they really struggle to get and see a real long-term issue with getting the skills that they need to build. And it's not actually just about time and getting the people, because we'll all fight over it, but it ends up manifesting itself in escalation and cost increase. And so it's a twofold thing. It is fundamentally going to affect the costs and how much we can deliver for the funding we get. So we have to deal with it. And at a high level, the industry has to change. We can't keep building the way we've built, whether it's infrastructure or whether it's building, housing, or even a non-residential construction. We are less productive than we were 30 years ago, and even less productive than we were in 1970. And that's a shocking state. And the skills layer, I know the builders are very worried about it. And so without turning this into an MMC discussion, we do have to change how we do things, and doing more through components and factory, where is a lot more, I think, a lot stronger case for labour and skills. They're more productive. more diverse workforce. So if we can somehow transition to a lot more manufactured off-site of components, we are going to attract a much more diverse and skilled workforce, and they will be more productive than working on site. But that is a long-term thing, but we have to tackle it. We have to change.
There is another session on MMC, I'm quite sure, which will be a fascinating discussion, and definitely very linked to workforce, so that's a good connection. We do only have 4 minutes left, and I'm going to make sure we get out of here at 1. So there are 2 more questions, and we'll go to those, and we'll try and keep our answers to the time. I think here and someone just there as well.
Thanks. Declan Martin from Ahuri Professional Services. My question was mainly regarding the SRL, and you mentioned sort of the mix of public ownership and private ownership within the precincts. I was just wondering how that sort of influences the types of housing typologies that can be delivered, the types of tenure that's delivered, and whether there's any advantages to having precincts that have greater levels of public ownership.
Each precinct is absolutely different. Monash is probably the one that gives us the larger landowning, consolidated landowning, which then provides different opportunities. We do expect some consolidation to occur to enable some of the other outcomes. And so we've gone through and done some modelling to understand what that looks like. But largely it is a market-led precinct change, and we're providing master planning opportunities for some of those larger holdings. In the other precincts, in the non-Monash precinct, the larger holdings are generally one owner, which then creates different opportunities. So an example would be in Box Hill, there's a former brickworks that is owned by one landowner, and so we're working with that landowner to then look at a diversity of offering within that site. So there's no one answer that I can give you. It is definitely going to be on a precinct scale, a precinct by precinct assessment and scale, but we are reliant on consolidation, we are reliant on master planning, concept designs, etc., to provide the diversity of built form.
Okay, on that note, we'll just go to our lucky last person asking a question. Is there a mic nearby? No? Did you still want to ask a question? Oh, you asked and answered. Well, you just saved us 2 minutes. Great. Okay, we could probably sneak in one last question if anyone... Okay, well, on that note, I'd like to thank Michael, Lissa and Heather for fantastic presentations and a great discussion. And thank you, everyone, for your questions and participation. And lunch is out there somewhere.